Hi, I'm Captain Steve Chaconis, and this is the National Bass Fishing Show. If you've been shopping for line, it looks like a tangled mess. You walk down the aisle, and what do I get? Do I get braid? Do I get fluorocarbon? Do I get monofilament? Do I get one with more abrasion resistance? Do I get one with more stretch? Do I get one with thin diameter? Do I get one with coatings? What color? All these questions that you're going to ask, but really, Rick Clunn gave me some advice, probably, actually it was in 2000. We were talking about line. He was at the Bassmaster Classic. I said, what do you think about line? He said, get one, learn its strengths and weaknesses, and find how it fits into your fishing system. I'm going to make the same recommendation, except today it's a little bit more involved. We have three types of line. We have braid, we have fluorocarbon, and then we have monofilament or a copoly, as we're looking at today. Now, when do you use them? Well, it's hard to say. It depends on what you're doing. If you want to fish deep or you want to fish shallow, you could use two different diameters. And that's really the key measurement in most lines is what is the line diameter. Thinner line allows you to go deeper. Thicker line keeps the baits from running as deep. So you can use their physical characteristics to help you while you're fishing. Stretch is another thing. I don't want a lot of stretch on the end of a long cast when I'm throwing a frog. I want no stretch. That means I've got to use braid. If I want some stretch, then I want to go to either fluorocarbon or I can go to a copoly. But its overall strength is how we judge our lines. 10-pound test. Now, 10-pound test, a copoly, which is a monofilament. It's not really mono. It's a mixture of all types of nylons to do different things. Abrasion resistance, stretch, and strength and all that stuff. Well, it's the same diameter as the edge fluorocarbon. It's the same diameter, and the strengths are relatively the same. But then you pull in braided line, and braided line, this is 10-pound test, but it's also the diameter of 3-pound test. So now we've got a very strong line with almost no stretch, and it has a much thinner diameter. All right, so we're trying to figure out which line to use, and we really don't understand stretch. And to show you stretch, this is what we used to do at the fishing shows, a long time ago. It was always like, well, who's got more stretch, less stretch? I want stretch, I don't want stretch. Well, this is the way we used to do it. We used to take a stretch of the line, it's about 3 feet or so, wrap it around one end of a dowel, take the other end of the line, wrap it around another dowel, and this is going to be relative. This is going to be something that you have to do and kind of see how it works for you. Now I'm going to pull these apart. I'm not going to yank them. I'm going to just get them tight and I'm going to pull them. You can see that this one gives. It gives about maybe 2 inches. Now you extrapolate that over 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 feet of line. That's a lot of stretch. That's a lot of give in your system. That's the monofilament. And it's sort of like a rubber band. It just sort of keeps stretching. But if we go to the fluorocarbon, we take the fluorocarbon, we do the same thing. We're going to wrap it around our dowel a few times. This takes a little bit of coordination. That's a good thing because I only have a little bit of coordination. Wrap it around the dowel. I knew this was going to be fun. Wrap it around the dowel just a few times here, and you're going to get a nice stretch here. It's only going to stretch just a skosh, just a little bit, and it's going to stop. It doesn't continue to stretch. That's your fluorocarbon. Has a little bit of stretch, but not as much, nearly as much as the mono. Okay, statistically, they say that mono probably has about 30% stretch, fluorocarbon about 20% stretch, and braid they say is about 0. So that's the fluorocarbon. The braid, on the other hand, we're going to see, and this is really something, it has almost no stretch. This is a big advantage if you're you got that big blow up on your frog and you need that instantaneous hook set. Well, this is the line that you want. Okay, it also casts a mile. This has no stretch. I'm not budging it at all. That's great. It's great for like getting that big hook, that frog hook, that punching mat hook, that big strong hook, thick wire on that hook, really ramming it through. Now, if you did that with mono, you'd have like a rubber band. You'd go like, oh. And I remember Woo Daves used to do that. He would get a guy in the back of the room. He'd say, here, hold this rod. I want you to set the hook as hard as you can. He'd walk to the other side of the room and he'd put that worm with the hook in his hand. The guy would be yanking and everybody would be laughing. And Woo would go, yeah, go ahead, start pulling now. It had stretch. Sometimes an advantage. Throwing crankbaits sometimes, small hooks, number 6, number 8 hooks. You probably want to go to something like a mono. You got something a little bit bigger, a bigger hook, like maybe your Texas rigging or cranking, power crankbait, square bills, using a number 4 hook or even a number 2 treble. You want to be able to pull that hook and drive it into the fish, and that line keeps that fish from really gaining control while you're trying to pull it in. Now, the big exception is topwater. Topwater, fluorocarbon is a no-no with topwater. Fluorocarbon would be okay for subsurface lures like that crankbait or jerk baits. They're fine. Lipless crankbaits, they're fine. But the mono floats. Your popper, when you pop it, you don't want your line to sink and drag that popper under the water. So mono works really well. Braid also works well when you're throwing topwaters. You can make really long casts, which is the key to a topwater. You can set the hook on the end of that long cast, the key to the topwater. But if you're using number 8 or number 6 hooks, sometimes that braid will just pull those hooks right out of the fish's mouth. So that's where you might want to make that distinction and go to a copoly of that similar diameter and strength. Now, the last thing is about line. Use your rod with the line. If you're finding that fish are sucking a bait in, but you can't quite get the hook set into them, either change your line from mono to fluoro or from fluoro to braid, or stiffen up the rod just a little bit. So work with your systems, and also as how the fish are biting. I've had several days where the fish just aren't biting like they should, and I've had to make an adjustment using a different rod, or maybe I've gone to a reel that's spooled with different line. We're going to continue talking about line, and next time we're going to talk about how to spool up your line so you can eliminate some of that line twist. There's more to it than the proper way to spool it. We'll talk about that. In the meantime, if you have questions or comments, you can contact me at nationalbass.com. Also check out my website for updates from the manufacturers and articles that I've written. Thanks for watching.